Yo, what is up everyone? Back here with another video. Today we're going to be going over the top 5 water types in Series 10. So, before we get into it, I just wanted to remind you guys, if you haven't already, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. It always helps with these videos, kind of people seeing them. Also, we are going to be doing a different kind of editing style for this video. Let me know if you guys enjoy that. Also, too, make sure to check out the Patreon where you guys can get access to all the different teams I use in Pokemon tournaments and World Cup. Also, access to a bunch of helpful guides that I put on there. Also, make sure to check out private coaching where you guys can improve your skills. It is the most affordable and the most personalized coaching on the market that you can find. But yep, as always, guys, thank you for supporting the videos, and let's get right into it. So, for number 5, we're going to be seeing Gyarados. Gyarados is a very strong water flying type. It's basically a strong physical attacker. If you look at its base stats, it has a high base attack, really high base HP. Also, it has a high special defense. It's a little bit lacking on its physical defense, but that's where its ability Intimidate compensates for it, right? So you're able to Intimidate. This is very helpful in a format with strong physical attackers like Groudon and Zacian, which we'll touch on more a bit later. But it is like an incredibly useful ability. The items it usually likes to run is usually Rocky Helmet or Assault Vest. It really depends on what you're going for with Gyarados. So Assault Vest kind of acts as like a pseudo Intimidate for its special defense, which honestly already has a strong special defense, right? So it's already going to be taking hits pretty well. But Assault Vest lets you also run dark coverage like Lash Out, so you can hit opposing Calyrex and kind of surprise them with that coverage. But I'd say the more common set is actually the Rocky Helmet set. Rocky Helmet allowing you to punish Urshafu Surging Strikes, allowing you to punish Behemoth Blade from Zacian, and kind of just acts as a deterrent from physical attacks hitting into it. And this can be really useful paired with Intimidate because you're going to be reducing the physical damage anyways, and then on top of that, they're going to be taking damage when they hit you, right? So it's just a really nice pivot, and you can swap it into a lot of different moves. So the moves it usually likes to run, depending on the set, is actually usually Waterfall, Power Whip, Thunder Wave, and Protect. This is usually on its Rocky Helmet set. Thunder Wave giving you strong speed control, Power Whip allowing you to hit other bulky waters, and Waterfall allowing you to deal your stab water damage into fire types or just into neutral mons that don't like taking the hit, right? So it's incredibly useful, and it can do a lot of damage, especially with that strong attack stat. Then I would say mostly what it runs when it's running Assault Vest is going to be Waterfall, Power Whip, Lash Out, and the coverage move in the last slot's a little bit up in the air. It really depends on what the team is looking for. Typically, you can see something like Ice Fang if you're trying to snipe an opposing Landorus and maybe Waterfall just doesn't pick up that KO. You can run a different coverage move there. There's a lot of options for Gyarados. And for primarily what it's good on and good versus, typically you'll see Gyarados on Zacian teams. Zacian able to really put out the damage and kind of really put pressure on the opposing mons, but sometimes it's pressured by stuff like fire attacks or ground moves, which Gyarados can safely swap into and take those hits. So synergizes really well with Zacian. Typically you'll usually see it paired with Incineroar as well, offering double Intimidate next to whatever restricted is paired next to. It's also seen a little bit of use next to stuff like Eternatus, because Eternatus is primarily weak to ground moves as well. So it's just a very good pivot, and its typing is actually very useful in this format. So it's really cool to see it kind of find that resurgence that it wants. So for number 4, we're going to be going into Suicune. So Suicune is a very interesting mon because at first it seemed like it wasn't that great in the format, but as the format progressed, it continued to improve over and over, and it started to make more appearances. So Suicune has the access to the ability Inner Focus, which I would say is primarily what makes it as good as it is. Inner Focus allows you to not get faked out, so you're not going to be taking as much damage, or rather you're not going to be getting flinched from fake out, right? So you can set Tailwind pretty freely. There's nothing that they can really do to stop your support moves, and you also have pretty decent bulk, right? So it's not like they can remove you with an attack immediately, which makes it a really good support mon next to a lot of the restricteds that want speed control or just want the damage to be reduced on the opposing side. So we can typically likes to run items like Citrus Berry. We have seen a straight Assault Vest here too. I personally think that the Citrus Berry set's a little bit better. We've even seen Safety Goggles as well. Personally, I think that if you're going to be using Suicune, the Citrus Berry set is probably the most reliable out of the bunch. But yeah, the moves it usually runs is Scald, Snarl, Protect, and Tailwind. Usually these moves are going to allow it to spread burns with Scald. Snarl is going to allow you to lower the special attack of opposing special attackers. Specifically, Calyrex is a big one. You have Tailwind, which obviously gives your team speed control, and then you have Protect, which just allows you to keep yourself safe and prevents Suicune from being able to get double targeted into. Some other notable moves it can run is Roar, which it can use to phase out opposing Xerneas. You typically don't see this as often, but there is a Safety Goggles Suicune set that does run this. And then there's also moves like Icy Wind and Ice Beam that it can use as extra coverage, especially if it's Assault Vest. So overall, pretty straightforward mon. It really is a good support mon next to stuff like Zacian and Eternatus. I'd say primarily it is mostly a support mon, so you can't really be expecting it to do damage, which is why it has this number 4 placement. If it was a little bit more offensive, I think it would have a higher placement, but because I think it lacks a little bit on the offensive department, it is going to be on at number 4. So going into number 3. So number 3 is going to be Araquinid. So Araquinid is actually something that I was debating putting behind Suicune and Gyarados or before it, but I want to put it before it mostly because of its ability Water Bubble. So Water Bubble basically gives you a your water power is like ×2, right? So even if the attack stat is kind of mediocre on the mon, the water moves are even stronger than they would be if like its attack was higher and like it was a 1.5 boost. So like it's actually crazy. Araquinid's damage output is actually so high that it can remove Incineroar even at -1 depending on the investment, right? Araquinid's so strong, and because of its ability to firepower against its actually have, so that's even more useful because even something like Incineroar can't even hit it really for neutral. It's kind of just sitting duck in front of it, and being able to beat something like Incineroar is actually incredibly useful. Another move that Araquinid gets access to that I think is actually incredibly useful is Leech Life. Typically you don't really think about Araquinid's coverage when you're talking about it, but Leech Life actually gives you a really awesome way to hit opposing Rillabooms. Typically, it's always paired with Mystic Water. Mystic Water is a really crucial item for boosting its water damage even more, so it's able to do more damage. So it's just really, really, it's a strong presence on the field. It's really tough to ignore. Then you have, what's it called? You typically can run stuff like Substitute, Wide Guard on it as well. It really is a really useful, like, kind of, almost a Gloomon, right? Because you can kind of put it anywhere, and it works. So I'd say Araquinid really fills out a nice niche because it can remove stuff like Incineroar, still stuff to hit Rillaboom, it can wall opposing Zacian, and it can really just deal a bunch of damage that the opponent has to respond to. And stuff like that is really strong in this format, hence why it's placed at number 3. So for number 2, I feel like this one might take some people by surprise, but I'm actually putting Kyogre here. Obviously, Urshafu Water is probably going to be the number 1 slot, but for Kyogre, I think that it's actually worse than Urshafu because it's less splashable, right? With Kyogre, you're forced to build a certain way around it. With Urshafu, you can kind of, it can fit on a lot of different compositions. So that's the only reason why I'm putting Kyogre behind Urshafu, just because it has less flexibility. Kyogre does have access to a lot of strong options, specifically have access to Water Spout, has access to Ice Beam, has access to Scald, just so many water moves that it can use, and so many coverage moves like Ice Beam and Thunder. Now, it wouldn't really matter if it didn't have its main ability, Drizzle. So Drizzle is an incredibly good ability that summons Rain Dance, basically, on swap in. So Kyogre can set Rain immediately and just put consistent pressure with Water Spout, right? Rain plus Water Spout's probably one of the strongest damage combinations in the game, besides Intrepid Sword and Behemoth Blade. So it's just a really, really strong option. For its items, it typically likes to run Choice Scarf or Mystic Water. Choice Scarf basically giving you the option of being able to outspeed opposing Zacian and Calyrex, getting the Water Spout off first. Mystic Water allowing you to run Protect, but also deal a lot more damage with your water moves. There is actually one other set as well, Leftovers Kyogre. Leftovers Kyogre typically likes to run Calm Mind as well, so it can kind of be a setup threat. And it's typically paired with a double grass composition of Amoonguss and Rillaboom, so it can do a lot more as a whole. So pretty much you're just setting it up to be a really big offensive threat, and it does have the bulk to kind of correlate with that. Now, Overall, how it interacts with the meta, I'd say that it's really good into obviously opposing Incineroar, really good into a lot of metamons like Zacian because it actually kind of walls Zacian. I mean, Zacian, obviously, if it's running Swords Dance, it can kind of pressure Kyogre, but likewise, Kyogre can also pressure a lot of damage as well. Kyogre also can just deal a ton of damage, even if the opposing Pokemon's resisting Water Spout, it's going to be taking so much from it that it's going to be really tough to ignore the damage. So, it's just going to be incredibly strong and really forcing the opponent to be on the back foot. And it can really pressure even opposing archetypes of teams. Specifically, Groudon is really difficult. It's difficult for, and even Xerneas sometimes it can be difficult for if you're not able to get the Xerneas set up properly. So overall, I think it's really carved itself out as one of the best restricteds in the format, being able to go for strong water spouts, especially when it's sped up by Scarf, and then also too when it's boosted by Mystic Water and Rain. And also too, the Calm Mindset is definitely nothing to slouch at. So for number one, we're obviously going to have Urshafu Water here. Spoilers. Um, I guess I should mention that one of our honorable mentions was Pelipper, but Pelipper is kind of paired with Urshifu Water a lot on Zacian teams. That's actually a team that just won recently. Figured that was worth noting before I got into Urshifu, just in case any of you were wondering where Pelipper was. But specifically here with Urshifu. So Urshifu really likes to utilize its Unseen Fist ability, which allows it to hit through opposing protects, regardless of whether or not they try and protect themselves, right? And then you're able to go for powerful Surging Strikes. So Surging Strikes is a move that crits all 3 times, and it is a multi-hit move, so it does a lot of damage. And especially when it's boosted by an item like Mystic Water, or it's just hitting first, or it's in rain, it's doing a lot of damage. So specifically, you'll see Urshifu run Surging Strikes, Close Combat, Aqua Jet, Protect. If it's running a Scarf set, you can see Surging Strikes, Close Combat, Rock Slide, Rock Tomb, or Aqua Jet and U-Turn. It always wants U-Turn because it allows it to reposition if it's a Choice Scarf set. Sometimes you'll see Choice Band. I personally think that set's probably the worst out of the bunch, but it is still around, so it's worth noting. Urshifu typically will be running either the Mystic Water or Scarf, as I mentioned, Mystic Water to boost up Surging Strike so it can actually just do a lot of damage, and it actually allows it to pick up some KOs it otherwise wouldn't. And then Choice Scarf allowing it to outspeed stuff like Calyrex and really do a bunch of damage with the Surging Strikes early, even into stuff like Zacian and other mons. So it's just a really strong option it has access to. Now, why is it good? Primarily, it's just because of its ability to really pin certain mons. So its ability to remove stuff like Incineroar, right, is super strong. Now, it goes into its ability as well because having the ability to fake out and target something and they can't protect versus it is really strong because it allows you to advance your game really early and it puts substantial pressure on your opponent to really reposition. I'd say Urshifu's one weakness overall is that it has a very flimsy special defense stat. This is compensated for either by running a bulky Urshifu set or by running Scarf so you can just hit first, and it's not so much a concern about being immediately removed. But yeah, that's the main thing with Urshifu. Urshifu, obviously, too, because of its water fighting type, gives it insane coverage that's incredibly useful. But yeah, the mana is just super strong. So that is going to be our top 5 water types. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this new editing style. Let me know in the comments if you guys did enjoy this new kind of style of video. And we'll see if we'll keep doing it, depending on what you guys say. Also, too, if you haven't already, make sure to check out the Patreon, where you guys can support me, besides, obviously, stream and, like, everything else. And also make sure to check out private coaching, where you guys can improve your skills. As I said, the most affordable and the most personalized coaching you'll find out there. Once again, guys, I just want to say thank you again, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.